Hello, and thank you for joining us for this virtual conversation about Be Internet Legends from Google and Parent Zone. This morning, we're going to be talking about how we're helping your children to stay safer and be more confident online. My name's Chelsea, and I'm part of Parent Zone's Be Internet Legends team. I've been teaching this in schools for about 3 years now, and I'll be stopping to respond to your thoughts and your questions as we go along. We've also got our expert Tim in the chat box, so feel free to ask any question that pops into your head. There is no such thing as a bad question. In fact, I'm going to ask you some questions as we go along, so make sure you've got your typing fingers ready. Now, just before we start, I want to check if everybody can see me and the pictures around me. If the quality of your video isn't very good, I'd recommend pressing refresh in your browser. And then whether you're watching on a phone or a tablet or a computer, you'll notice a little cog in the bottom right hand of your screen. So if you click on that and select quality, you can change that there, and that should help depending on whatever your Wi-Fi or your data can cope with. Now, this whole session will take about 30 minutes. We'll spend the first few minutes explaining what Be Internet Legends is and why it's more important now than ever. Then we'll move on to the Legends Code. Now that's the 5 most important things for your children to remember when they're online, before thinking a little bit about digital well-being. Now that section will take about 10 to 15 minutes, and there will be loads of opportunities for you to ask any questions and share your experiences as we go along. Finally, we'll finish off with some fantastic resources like our online game Interland and the next steps you can take from home. So, without further ado, get yourselves a cup of tea or your morning coffee, get yourselves comfortable, and we will begin. In a nutshell, Be Internet Legends is an internet safety programme designed by experts for schools and families. Now, we've been teaching this in schools across the UK for about 3 years now, with a mix of interactive assemblies, really fun and engaging lessons, and our online game Interland. And we're still doing all that work now virtually. What we wanted to do this morning is to share with you some of the techniques and the tips that we've developed for Be Internet Legends for you to use at home with your children if you wanted to. And Be Internet Legends is all about sharing, so I'd love to hear about any of the tips or the tricks that are working for you at home when it comes to supporting your children online. So if you've got anything to share, just pop it in that chat box. So, let me tell you a little bit more about Be Internet Legends. It's a programme that covers the most important skills and behaviours that children need to be safer and more confident online. Now, we break this down into easy to remember things about internet safety, ways to develop healthy habits, and ideas to make sure that they're confident explorers of the online world. Right now, I bet you're juggling a lot of things at once. You might be trying to work remotely whilst having your children at home, and of course, keeping in touch with your friends and family. It's a really tricky time, but you're definitely not alone. Across the world, 1.5 billion people, 1.5 billion children have been at home because of the pandemic. And this means that each of those families will have their own new normals. I'd love to hear a little bit about where you're watching from today, maybe a bit what your new normal looks like, so do say hello in that chat box. Any questions you've got or anything you'd like to share, pop it in there. Our expert Tim is waiting for you, and I'll have a look in there in a few moments. But before I do that, I just want to share with you a question we have been asked a lot over the last few months, and it's this. Is it okay for my child to spend more time gaming in lockdown? And what we say is it's okay to relax some of those rules as long as you're keeping an eye on how it's making your children feel and making sure that they've got a really good online-offline balance. So wherever you are and whatever your normal looks like, Be Internet Legends is here to help your children use the internet safely and confidently. Now, the programme includes a full internet safety curriculum, and this has been developed with help from children's charities, education experts, psychologists and the police. Now, all the research that we did told us that we needed to focus on 5 key messages. So we created the Legends Code. Now, this is the 5 most important things for your children to remember when they're online. And it's a really child-friendly code as well. So I'm going to go through each part now. So first we have Be Internet Sharp. Think before you share. Next is Be Internet Alert. Check it's for real. Then we have Be Internet Secure. Protect your stuff. Next is Be Internet Kind. Respect each other. And finally we have Be Internet Brave. When in doubt, discuss. Now, before I pause to have a little look in the chat box, I just want to introduce you to the digital wellbeing part of the programme. Now, we encourage children to think about how technology is making them feel, the positives and the negatives, and really start reflecting on their own screen use. Now, this can be really helpful right now, especially if your kids are spending more time online, and it might even help save some of those screen time squabbles some of you might be having. Okay, I'm going to have a little look in the chat box. Oh, fab. Tim has popped a link for the teaching resources for the Be Internet Legends programme. So if you are interested in downloading that, having a little look, some of the activities and lesson plans in there could be adapted if you wanted to do them at home with your children. So that's great. Thanks for that, Tim. Any other questions or comments you'd like to make, pop them in the chat box. I'll have a look in there first, soon. But first, I'm going to go through each part of the Legends Code in a little bit more detail, starting with Be Internet Sharp. Now, this one's all about managing your privacy and protecting your personal information online. We always tell children to think before they share. And whilst they're stuck at home a bit more, they might want to share more than they normally would. But it's just as important that they're careful as ever. Now, this applies to if they're sharing photos or videos or having video chats. They need to make sure that there's nothing in the background that they wouldn't want anybody else to see. Now, you can help your children to be internet sharp by having a conversation with them about what information's okay to share and what information should be kept private. And really break this down with your kids. So, for example, there might be some information that you're happy for them to share with maybe close friends and family, but you wouldn't want to share with anybody else. And then maybe your child has some friends who they game with online, so online friends. Thinking there, what information is okay to share and what should be kept private. And then thinking wider about anybody else who's on the internet. Now, the second part of the code is Be Internet Alert. Now, this one kind of gives your kids the skills to be online detectives. So they're spotting for clues that something might be fake, or it could be misleading, or it might even be a scam. Now, in the assemblies, we teach children to check on any links before clicking on them. We also get them to look out for a closed padlock in the address bar. Now, if a website has one of these, it's a good sign that it's more secure and safer to use. We always tell children if they're ever unsure about anything they've seen online to check in with a trusted adult who can help. Now, that could be you or a parent or a carer or maybe their teacher if they're back at school. Now, there are loads of scams and misleading news stories going around during the pandemic, but we find once your children know the tips and the tricks, they can often spot them a mile away. Next part of the code is Be Internet Secure. Now, this one's all about protecting your stuff and keeping your personal information and data safe online. Now, there are some really simple security things you can do from home, like creating a mega strong password. Now, a mega strong password needs to be a mixture of lowercase letters, uppercase letters, numbers, and symbols. It needs to have at least 8 characters in. And once you've got your super strong password, we always tell children to keep it to themselves, so don't go sharing it with their best friend, for example. We talk to children as well about how it's really important to have a password what's easy for them to remember, but really difficult for somebody else to guess. So it might be not a good idea to have the name of your pet or favourite sports team, because that would just be too easy for somebody to guess. Now, it's a really good idea to have different passwords for all your different accounts and making sure you're changing them often to keep everything super secure. We're also reminding children to make sure that they log out of their accounts properly. Now, this is especially important if they're back at school or maybe using the local library, a shared computer or device, that they're logging out properly, because we don't want anyone else accessing any of their personal or private information. Next part of the code, we have Be Internet Kind. Now, this part of the code helps children understand all the ways communicating online is different to communicating in person. So it's all about keeping everything fun, thinking carefully about the messages they're sending, and finding all the positive ways to stay in touch with their friends and family online. And even though communicating online is different to communicating in person, some of those same techniques still apply. So in the assemblies, we always encourage children to think about, would I say this out loud? Or would I say this to the other person's face? Because if the answer is no, they shouldn't be posting it online. We get children to really think about the messages they're sending. So thinking about, will this message come across how I mean it to? So finding all the positive, kind ways to stay in touch with everybody online. Now, the final part of the code is Be Internet Brave. Now, this gives children the confidence and the space to talk about anything that's been on their mind when they're being online. Now, this is especially important if it's something that might be making your child feel a bit nervous or embarrassed, worried, upset, or scared. It's always best to be brave and talk to you about it. Now, they'll be used to their teachers checking in with them at school, so this can be something really useful for you to continue at home. And it might be a nice idea to make it a regular part of your day. So maybe when you're having your dinner or your tea or out walking the dog, that you're chatting with your children about what they've been doing online, who they've been chatting to, what games they've been playing. And then if they ever do have a problem, it'll feel like a really normal and relaxed conversation to have with you. And that's it. That is the Legends Code, teaching your children the most important skills and behaviours so that they can enjoy the internet safely and confidently. Now, I've been through the Legends Code, but you all do this every day. So I'd love to hear some of your tips on how you're chatting to your children about some of these topics. Now, we've got a few resources to share with you, but we completely understand that this stuff isn't always easy. Now, I've got another question for you, and it is this. How do you encourage your children to talk to you about what they're doing online? Now, if you've got any tips or any more questions, pop them in the chat box. Tim is waiting for you, and I'll have a look there in a few moments. But before I do that, let's talk a little bit more about the digital wellbeing part of the programme. Now, research tells us that there's no fixed rules about how much time a child should be spending online. So, instead of rules, we want children to develop their own healthy habits so that we don't have to keep reminding them. Now I'm going to share with you 2 exercises that we do with children in schools, what you could try at home with your children if you wanted to. Now, the first one is we encourage children to track how they're feeling when they're online using emojis. So, for example, your child might be playing a game online, and when they start playing it, they're so happy because they've been wanting to play all day. So they draw a picture of super smiley emoji. And then perhaps as they're playing, they're struggling to understand what they're doing. Maybe they keep losing their lives and they're actually starting to feel a bit frustrated and a bit angry. So they draw a picture of a angry face emoji. And then maybe as they're playing a bit more, they complete that level and they're so happy and so proud of themselves. They draw 2 big thumbs up and an emoji with a super smiley face. Now, what that exercise allows your child to do is to see how they were feeling at different points in that game, but more importantly, see how their feelings were changing over time. Now, another exercise you could do at home if you wanted to is we encourage children to keep a digital diary. So it might be that your child's online for a set amount of time a day, but during that time they could be doing schoolwork or homework, chatting with their friends, having loads of fun playing games, and then maybe doing something creative like vlogging or editing videos or photos. So what this allows your child to do is make sure that their online activity is varied and they're doing lots of different things, but also make sure that there are healthy doses of offline activity too. Now, that is a whistle-stop tour through the Be Internet Legends programme. Now, Be Internet Legends is in about 70% of schools, so chances are when you're tackling this stuff at home, you're really reinforcing some important messages. Now, we're launching more resources to help out where we can, and we've already got some amazing things you can do straight after this chat, starting with Interland. Now, this is an online game made by Parent Zone and Google, and children absolutely love it. Now, as they're exploring Interland, they're completing challenges based on the Legends code, learning how to become really fearless, confident explorers of the online world. Now, I'd really encourage you to play this game with your children. It can be a really good way to open up conversations about some of the topics we've been discussing today. Now, I love the game. Kind Kingdom's my favourite level, but there's a level called Mindful Mountain what I really struggle with. So I'd love to hear if anyone can complete it and how you and your children get on with the game. And maybe you can make it into a bit of a competition in your household. See who can get the highest score. Maybe lowest score has to do something like the dishes. Now, if you've still got some energy after adapting to working remotely and maybe trying to get that online shopping slot, we've got more activities. Now, they're designed to be really fun to do together as a family and are based on each part of the Legends code. Now, we'll be adding more and more resources in the upcoming weeks, but do check them out. Tim has popped a link for you in the chat box, and I'll share a link at the end of this chat. Now, we know it's not always easy to keep your children entertained and educated at home, but Be Internet Legends is here to help. It'll help you know that they know how to stay safe and be confident online as they learn, play and stay connected. Now, before I dash, I'm going to have a quick look in that chat box. Fab. Tim's popped some links there, so do check them out. But perhaps you do have a question, but you didn't want to share it in a public forum, or this always happens to me a bit later on or at the weekend, I'll be like, oh, I should have asked that. We've got an email address on the screen now. Any question, and remember there is no such thing as a bad question, pop an email address over to our Legends headquarters and somebody will get back to you with an answer. We've also got our parent hub, so do check that out. Tim's popped a link for that in the chat box. Now the hub's got loads of great resources and articles, what you might find useful and interesting to look at. Now I hope this session has been useful. We've got more and more parent sessions coming up, so if it has, do let your other parent friends and family members know, because we want to spread the word of Be Internet Legends across the country. Now, we've got a little survey. It'll take you about 30 seconds to fill in. If you do have the time, I'd really appreciate if you could spend 30 seconds filling that in. It just helps us understand if the information we're talking about is relevant to you and if there's anything else you'd like us to cover or focus on in the future. So that would be great if you could fill that in for us. I'm going to have a last look in the chat box. Nothing else there. So there's nothing left for me to say apart from thank you so much for joining me this morning. I've had a really lovely time talking to everybody. I hope it's been useful. And yeah, I'll see you soon. Bye.